were just so tight and compressed in the 80s, and people's attitudes towards everything were so geared towards the mainstream and what the mainstream was, this nebulous mainstream. And, it's just the Reagan era, just things were so conservative. There was no crossover. There was what we were doing, the underground, and then there was Huey Lewis in the news. And there was nothing in between. And it never would occur to us that what we doing had anyone in that world that would be interested in what we're doing, and no one that we weren't interested in what they were doing. It was completely separate. But in the 90s, all that changed, There was a time before punk rock, and I sort of come from that time. When I was 11, 12 years old, 72, 73, started listening to music, like rock and roll music, and getting interested in rock and roll. And as I got into like high school era, I'd hear the people who were into rock and roll, they were like musicians, and their language didn't make sense to me. Because I was interested in music, but I was interested in music because it felt good, or it worked in a way that made your mind think about things. But they seem to have this point of view that they say things like, well, that song, it's only 3 chords. Anyone could play that. But to me, it was like, what's wrong with that? I don't understand. If it sounds good, what difference does it make how difficult or easy it is? And so I always thought, like, well, so what if it's easy? It's what I want to hear. So then punk rock came along and said, yeah, that's right. You don't need to be a great musician to do it. In fact, there's no right way to do it. There's just doing it.
I can feel it all coming down. Cross my face, I'm running on. I heard they gonna get it up, gonna put it on.
Everything you hear, commercials, whatever, every band, your neighbor down the street's playing punk rock. And it's just like the times,
Charge you a nickel and a dollar. Well, I'm mine.
If I would have listened to what I'm playing or whatever, what I listen to now when I was, 5 years old, I know I would have liked that. That's what I would have been into.
Get a cup and gonna get my tear.
Like so much of my day is just taken up by, by this kind of stuff. By rock and roll and punk rock and and cool people, and so this is like my chance to run with the dogs or something. Bad metaphor.
Fill a cup up and drink it, then lose my fear. Round up and down, it's the best thing all around. The Peeches, the station, no one can all got to us, and left with us, you know that you don't well have
Basically, I feel like I'm pretty much grew up with the experience of being involved in mainstream America. Like, I didn't grow up punk or anything. I mostly grew up listening to R&B and stuff on the radio in Washington, D.C., where I was raised or whatever. And so, like, I happened into punk more than anything like that. So I don't really feel like it's lame. I think that it serves its purpose, but I just think that the other things are more interesting. And, like, things that are more community-based and things like that, and self-sufficient.
There was no network of underground rock music in the 70s, and it started to build slowly. And through the 80s, it became much stronger. And I think that networking was really a big part of what made punk rock exciting, was that you were connecting up with people who had similar interests or doing similar things in other places, and they sort of, just the idea of punk rock sort of galvanized a lot of people, but it also inspired a lot of people. And so part of that was just the idea of doing things for yourself. It was really exciting, you know, putting on shows, making a fanzine, doing a radio show, being in a band, putting out records. All these things came together, and what the common thread there that maybe wasn't really consciously discussed was just taking control of the media, taking control back from people who had sort of become a monopoly in a lot of ways.
You start to exist in a different world where, like, you might be making records, but your whole, I'm trying to explain this, like, you get into this thing where, like, you're working all the time because you're so into what you're doing, and you're working maybe till 4 in the morning, and then you're sleeping, and then you're getting up and doing whatever you need to do to survive. And then if you ever have any money in your pocket, it's like you don't want to go and buy shoes with it because, you know, you really should get some more silkscreen inks. You never have any money because whatever money you have, you're putting back into what you're doing, like, you know, buying recording tape or buying inks or paints or paper or whatnot. Maybe you're making something, and, you know, someone's like, "Hey, that was a great CD," and you are so totally in a different world than them because it's been like 5 years since you walked into a store and bought a record, because the only things you ever buy are like food and guitar strings. And like from a sort of a sociological standpoint, it can be quite odd to really be sort of like you're in this world, but you're outside of it, you know. I wanted just to kind of break out and like do different kinds of things and have ideas that were more conceptual, or that were like more room for anarchy to pop into the situation, or more things that weren't like, oh, well, that's a good pop song or whatever. More things that were sort of color outside the lines sort of deals. And so my friend Robert and I started playing, and we ended up calling it Some Velvet Sidewalk. Kind of all comes down to basically like doing what you want to do, you know. It's kind of like, you know, hey, this is what I'm gonna do, and like, you know, maybe it's not popular this year, maybe it's not popular next year, maybe it's never gonna be what's popular, but this is what I want to do, and maybe it's not what you want to do, and whatnot. And maybe I have to do it all myself, you know, maybe I have to like get on the phone and every inch of the way make this show happen, make that show happen, make the poster, mix the tape, get the tape, mix the tape, turn, you know, put the artwork together, and there's not going to be someone holding your hand and going, okay, we're going to take your tape away from you now and remix it and market it for you and whatnot. But having that faith that you're just going to do what you want to do and follow your own path, it's a nice thing, and it kind of extends beyond whatever little piece of time in your life that you play music, whether it's, 10 years of your life or 20 years of your life or the rest of your life. It kind of extends beyond it as just sort of a lesson about how to live your life.
There are
Here in Olympia, there was a magazine in the 70s and the 80s called Op, and the whole focus of it was independent music and networking. And so that's kind of where I got involved in music originally, was with the people that started Op magazine and worked at the radio station here, Chaos. And their whole idea was that non-commercial radio should play non-commercial music. And that doesn't just mean the obscure Bob Dylan song that never gets played, but no Bob Dylan at all. And playing music by artists who are working independently. And that was a pretty profound concept, even to punk rockers, because, the Ramones and Patti Smith and the Sex Pistols, they were all on major labels. To say, we're going to have a punk rock radio show, but we're not going to play anything on a major label, including, Blondie and Television and Patti Smith, and people were just like, that just didn't make sense to anybody. And, so it's a pretty radical concept at the time. Nowadays, people kind of, I think they can grasp that better than then. But there was a lot of fights about it. Not just, mostly with other communities, with people, because a lot of people who were involved in radical politics in the 60s and 70s and were still sort of doing things that were interesting, like running non-commercial radio stations, well, that was the music they were interested in, was all on major labels. And so to them, it was like, no, but Bob Dylan's radical. And you're like, well, Bob Dylan may be radical, but playing his records is not radical. Playing them on your radio show is not radical.
Well, Cuba Libre is for the Cuban people against the embargo imposed by the USA. But it's just an example of the kind of conformity that America demands in the Western Hemisphere, all over the world. It's something that, our group, our gospel group, Steve, Michelle, James, myself, the makeup, we stand against it, both, vocally in our sermons, but also in our format. We embrace the gospel form, the congregational form, including people in a rhythm hive, as opposed to alienating people. And it's our response to sort of the, the world outside, the status quo.
the sexiest band I know, the Makeup Boys!
So much. Thank you so much. I want to thank y'all guys. Let's have a round of applause. Stand for your neighbors and positive force for helping to put this show on. Because there's a day, and it's not too far away. Baby, when the judge is gonna come with the robes and the wig that's gray, let me hear you say yeah. Here comes the drum.
We're just a gospel band, so our lyrics or our oration takes center stage in our music. We create a rhythm. We try to create hypnosis, and then we talk about topical things, as opposed to, writing more in a stricter song format, and that we feel that gives us, more freedom. So, of course, we talk about, the things that affect us, the official forms of expression, the bind that we're all in, things that normal people can relate to. Actually, normal people.
it's true, especially in America. You know, people, kids are raised to believe that after 21, you're an adult. Like 21 means adulthood, and that anything under that is childhood. And I think creativity also dies sometimes at 21, and that is one of the messages that makeup tries to propagate, is that 21 doesn't have to be significant at all as an age. That's why we play all ages shows, you know, so that the youth doesn't think that being 21 means the ticket. You know what I mean?
Well, one of the first things that made me think something's different is when in 1990, Ian Svenonius became the sassiest boy of America in Sassy magazine. And that just would never have happened in the 80s. It just did not happen. To have that weird mainstream underground crossover thing that kind of started then. And, you know, it's totally normal now, but it blew our minds. It really blew our minds. Yeah.
Hello, and thank you for calling Jabberjaw. Jabberjaw is located at 3711 Pico Boulevard, 2 blocks east of Crenshaw, in the Ghetto District. Jabberjaw is all ages and usually $5 or $6. For demos and such what, send them to P.O. Box 340857, Arleta, California 91334. Upcoming shows for the month of July, the first one being Saturday, July 5th with the High Fives, Strictly Ballroom, Nuzzle, and Transitional. That is Saturday, July 5th, the High Fives, Strictly Ballroom, Nuzzle, and Transitional.
Welcome to LA.
Well, Chris and I had played music for several years, maybe 8 or 9, in several different bands. And we found that no matter how often we played our instruments, we had the same sound. And we can't change it. And even when we try to cover bands, we still have this certain sound. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, and I'm not saying we can change it or not change it, but it's all Chris and I know how to do. And that is the High Fives.
Maybe dumb pop songs that I'm making, and maybe we're writing songs that aren't brilliant or orchestral or anything, but they're still, when I listen to pop songs that I think are amazing, I have an incredible reaction to them, like some Neil Diamond songs or any, like, whatever, good, even if it's dumb, I can have an incredible reaction to it, and I consider it great. And so if I could be that myself to somebody else and create something that I'm incredibly proud of, even if it is simple and dumb, and a dumb rock song or a dumb pop song, that is achieving an amazing thing for me. And I think that's within my grasp.
You know, we never thought we'd sell as many records as we have, and in doing
Which
so,
isn't many.
Which isn't many, but in doing so, we have not changed what we would do if we had sold 10 records, you know, one iota.
Whenever you're on tour in a band, especially in an independent band, people welcome you. They want to show you where to eat. They want to, you know, oh, you got to see this. This is like, you know, you get into the back door of every community that you go to almost, and that's the. I've seen the country like that. I've seen Canada like that. We've seen the back door of this continent.
Well, just tell me where you want to go. I'll take you there, cause it's all the same to me. Just to be by your side makes the miles go by, so come on and fly with me. Oh, let's pack our bags, baby, we'll split. Don't make a map, honey, let's take a trip.
People are always asking us, like, why we're not in more magazines and stuff like that. And we do, like, interviews and fanzines a lot. But, basically, we all agree that touring is the best form of promotion.
And it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and it's fun. You get to meet all kinds of neat people, see the world. And it's a great opportunity.
Get your kicks while you're young enough to get them.
Yep.
Just tell me, when you close your eyes and I'll tell you, what we're passing by, just tell me. If you've seen it before, then I'll put this cloud in another gear.
It's easy to tour.
Yeah.
All you have to do is get in a car and then drive around. I mean,
It's not that hard.
yeah, if you take some time off work, then it's pretty easy.
Let's go now, tell me where you wanna go. I'll take you there, cause it's all the same to me. Just to be right side makes the miles go by, so come on and fly with me. Oh, we can go to...
We don't really make money when we tour, you know, so if you're like totally struggling to pay your rent and your daycare bill and your doctor bill and everything, and then you take off for 2 weeks and come back with like $15, it's just not really very happening.
It's hard to find a job that allows you to tour. It's, you know, you're, hey, can I be gone for a month and a half, 2 months, 6 weeks, please? And not get fired, or I think most bands do it by, you know, doing dishes, you know, or whatever, some job that's a high turnover rate. Everyone's got a different job. I mean, Steve works at a flower stand, and Gary
Can't leave that job.
It's a high...
There's romance being created in that job.
I know, every sale is a love, probably, or death, you know, it's heavy. But yeah, John is a school teacher.
You can leave that job.
He can leave that job, but not this time. You couldn't leave it. We had offered to tour with Green Day, this most recent Green Day tour. It's October 24th, and too short notice.
That's today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right now would be where?
At Lookout.
If we had taken the Green Day
Oh,
thing.
right now? No, the tour would start in 6 days.
Oh.
But we couldn't do it. Too short notice for John. I would have quit my job in a second. But, you know, we all sign contracts, I guess, and have obligations.
Does anyone hear bitterness?
But, you know, so every individual has a different situation to solve when they're in a dumb band that tours a lot.
At the time I started getting into music, if there was anyone interested in punk rock, then you wanted to know about it, because there were so few people who knew about it. But the other side of that was that if they were interested, they were probably the most interesting person in that town, because it seemed to attract that kind of person. I went to high school in Olympia, and it wasn't just that I was the only one interested in punk rock. No one else even knew what punk rock was. They'd never heard of it. And so it was just a different world, you know. So you're going to reach out to whoever you, and if you have to ride 3,000 miles, then that's what you do.
From what I can tell, it's just, you know, people are in school, maybe, you know, they know someone, they meet someone in town X and they move away to town Z, you know, but they stay in touch, and if they get together and they're musically minded, maybe they both play together, you know, and it just kind of spreads in that way, you know. It's always, it's a buddy system, exactly. You know what I mean? It's just kind of the more people you meet, the more it kind of branches out, and it's just a matter of people who know each other, that they want to play music, you know, but they happen to live in different places.
It's in the way she goes, ba, 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 ba. It's in the way she goes, ba, 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 ba,
I've always taken performing, as you put it, pretty lightly. I don't get too bent out of shape about it, you know. People always ask me if I get nervous, and I'm never really that nervous. So yeah, it just amounts to like pretty basic physical stuff. Packing the gear, and yeah, there's never really preparation. You just kind of show up and you get on stage and hope that you get in the moment when the moment happens and you're done.
It totally depends on the crowd. I mean, you get a lot of stoic crowds in the city, and that I kind of unfortunately feed off that too much. It just freaks me out. But otherwise, if people are dancing, I just go crazy and have fun. But yeah, once I get past the first song, I'm totally fine, but whatever, anything can happen, it doesn't matter. First couple of songs, maybe.
There is a bit of a stereotype about San Francisco where most people who come are of the chin-scratching, you know, art critic variety. They'll sit there and, you know, and it's weird because from what you can tell, they didn't like the show. I mean, your initial reaction is, oh, that went over like a lead balloon, but then you have people coming up and telling you that they had a good time. It's just kind of weird. They're not, they have an introverted enjoyment of the show. You know, it's all kind of cerebral. But then sometimes you get people who will boogie, but rarely. I don't know. I mean, but I don't feel too bad if no one likes it. It doesn't, you know. Even if we piss people off, that's cool too, as long as there's some sort of reaction.
You know, I'm human like everybody else, and there's a catchy pop song, and you hear it a couple dozen times, you can't help but nod your head. But it's not really part of my life, you know. It doesn't register usually. I really don't know what's going on in that world. You know, a time when, before punk rock, of course, I listened to what was happening. Once punk rock happened, I was just like, well, whatever. You know, maybe once in a while somebody would come along, kind of catch my eye, George Michael or somebody, you know. and I'll be like, hey, this guy's got something going on. But mostly, I just don't have time for it. I'm too busy. I got too many, my friends making great records. I don't have time to listen to whatever lame radio station is playing.
When I started, like, I guess, gaining feminist consciousness when I was 18 years old or whatever, like when I really started being like considering myself a feminist, and I started my band Bratmobile with Allison and Aaron, and we started making fanzine about like girls in punk rock. We always felt like the reason we were doing things was just because we saw a need. One of the main goals for us was just to kind of like disseminate information about all of these like incredible women that were making music, and also just kind of like speak out as much as we could about the fact that just in general in society and culture, women don't get the fair amount of respect that they're due. And I think that recently, with so many like mainstream women artists being recognized and selling millions and millions of albums, like at least like part of American culture and world culture is starting to take notice of like how exceptional women are in music, and that's still like true for in certain instances for women in punk rock or in independent music or whatever, but it seems like people are really critical too, and really like just because of the territorial nature of independent music and punk, like really can be really critical at the same time as being like really elated about success.
So bizarre. It was like this period of like us being on tour, for like 4 weeks and working really hard and playing these shows that were oftentimes just regular shows. There'd be like 50 people there, and then just sort of like driving through a gas station, and our roadie Tim went to buy some magazines to read in the van, and he picked out the Time magazine and was like, "Oh my God, you guys are in here!" And we were like, "What?" And it was kind of that experience of like feeling sort of out of control in terms of like who was writing about us. I mean, the guy who wrote us Spend Time is like obviously not interested in the kind of music that we were playing. Like he found it like noisy and, you know, like discordant, you know, and it's like, well, we obviously are coming from this sort of like punk rock like genre of music that he wasn't interested in.
I think in some ways we have responded in our songs to being within larger realms of rock music. You know, some of the things we write about are sort of like playing with those ideas of stepping into different roles and being, you know, and seeing things through our eyes, you know, as being women playing rock. So I think in those terms we have reflected sort of gaining a larger audience. But I think that writing reflectively is something we'll do no matter what happens.
Well, I don't think we were trying to label or redefine what our community is. We were just trying to acknowledge the fact that when you do mainstream press, they try to take you out of context and act as if we are not part of a larger community and a larger musical environment. And Sleater-Kinney wouldn't exist without bands and individual people and labels from Portland and Olympia. We just wouldn't exist. And I think that when you're being interviewed, I mean, they want to just like act as if you just fell from the sky, as if everything we did had nothing to do and was not connected with other people and with other musicians and ideas. And so I think we've been really trying to acknowledge that our record and our success and our failures and everything about our band has to do with our community and not just about us as individuals. It's so much about like other work, like work that other people are doing, and not just about us. And it's about that interconnectedness. And it's not trying to label like what we're coming from, but just acknowledge like we are coming from somewhere. We're not just an isolated like entity without, you know, a context or a background or history or anything.
The ways that capitalism has affected music is so repulsive to me that it's created the idea of music as, you know, the only interest that people have in it, really, bottom line, is what will sell. I think that it is your responsibility as an artist, if you want to engage in those sort of questions that make life interesting, no matter what age you are, you know, to ask those instead of just be interested in what will be sort of commercial and sort of consumable by people. The other part of that is there's so much so many terrible things wrong with our society that a lot of times people feel so weighted down by it that they, not only do they emotionally die, but some people are killing themselves, you know, in different ways, who play music, and that's been a really big part of rock music for a long time. And I think that asking yourself what is meaningful about life and what you want to struggle with, instead of, you know, just being self-destructive and not answering those questions, you know, that's what's really inspiring to me as I get older, is that I don't feel like I've turned my back on, you know, struggling and on being challenged and discovering new things.
One of the ideas that I have with working at K is that we're not manufacturing products to be consumed. We are documenting artistic expression, and we're making it available to people who might be interested in it and experiencing it. And that's kind of the attitude that I try to maintain, which is very difficult to maintain in our society, because it's very easy to be seduced by the need to participate in marketing and consumerism and just the whole economic climate of capitalism.
What's the difference between major label and yo-yo? Well, money, specifically. We have none, and we go into large debt to make the records that we make, and typically we can't really pay our bands anything. And a while ago I got this idea. I mean, I had this studio, I bought it, squandered inheritance, and I had it, and I got this idea that, because I saw all these bands around me who I thought were really great, and that it seemed like they would just like disappear after 6 months, and no one would ever get to hear them. And I knew that they didn't have any money, they just got together because they loved to. And so I got this idea of I'll just start recording them for free. I've got nothing to do, it gives me experience, I get to do what I love to do. And eventually I came up with the idea of creating these compilation records where I would offer a band a recording session. We'd do like half dozen songs, and then I'd get one of the recordings, one of the songs, and put them on these compilations, make the compilations, sell them, and then I'd get the money for it, for the studio, and that would basically pay for their session. And so we created this barter system that worked really well, because it allowed these bands that did disappear pretty quickly, or whatever, or changed significantly from their beginning. It allowed that to be documented, and that was really important. In a way, like I'm always really sort of frustrated by the fact that I don't have a lot of money to do stuff with it. It's like if I had this money, I could do this with it. But when I look at major label situations, and I look at smaller labels that have gotten bigger and become basically major labels, it's always really apparent that something gets lost in the translation, and that everywhere you look, culture is so often compromised by commerce, and commerce and economics are just so devastating on culture, and it's just I don't know. So sometimes I'm really happy I'm poor, and I revel in it a little bit, but it is also frustrating.
I've heard rumors about major label interest, but no one's actually talked to us personally. Not really.
Is that something you're interested in?
Not really. We're interested in making money, but just
survival. We're just
nice,
surviving. Being able to eat and pay rent, all that,
I don't want to be heard by the masses because we're played on like The End or K-Rock or whatever the local big radio station is, I would rather be listened to and heard by like a college radio station or by word of mouth.
It's sort of It's sort of sad. I mean, I've seen it happen to a lot of bands. You know, they get like the check, and then they're like, now we're a band, and they break up like a year later.
Yeah, it's
and
tough.
It's sort of cooler to keep it at a scale where you're like, you know, we can make our own records, we can get them distributed in some way, and you know, play a tour once a year or something.
Yeah, I don't have any illusions of
Becoming
thinking this sound. It's not ready for that. It's not. No one wouldn't be accepted in the mainstream. So.
Worst case scenario, you're on a major label, you fucked your life up. You listen to everything they said, you quit listening to yourself and your own heart, and you make a dumb record. Then you start a new band, and the same caliber major labels are offering to sign you, and you tell them all to fuck off because some alcoholic has a dream that he wants to start a record label, an indie label, and you say, okay, put out our record. And then 7 years later, you play the Monterey Rock and Arts Fest, you know, for 200 people in a place that holds, a couple thousand. What's wrong with that? I think that's pretty cool.
6 songs anyway. The set goes out to Darren Rademacher, California's greatest rock and roller. I don't care what Flipside says.
It has what I think that bands that I like do, and what I'd like to do is to really, in young people or coming up, kind of show them that they kind of wipe out the chance of ever becoming a real hypocrite, you know? And you know, because our songs don't deal with things that are that easily, like I said, that's going to help you look good to your parents, but then it might help, it might help some ways. I don't really know. I don't know, but it's too heavy.
I've been on a major label, and as stupid as that label was, and as stupid as everybody who ran it, and as stupid as everybody who was who worked there, the stupid people were us for getting suckered in and doing the stuff that we did. But everybody knows, if you're watching this and you're into indie rock music or punk rock music, everybody knows the bands that are worth a shit, that are doing it all on their own, or somebody who's helping them is doing it on their own. And everybody knows the ones who are on the fence, you know? And everybody knows the ones who are complete and utter
being told what to do.
Sellouts. And if you can't tell that, then, and if you don't care, then you're better off than I am, you know? Because it's all about if you like the record or not, or if you like the show. But, you know, there is something to be said for those few bands that are really good who say, I won't take your limo ride, you know? Because most of them take it, you know? And that's cool. That's fucking great, man. If your limos are the only way to ride.
You know? That's always great. I love bars.
Why there is anger and why there's backlash at bands that are seen as selling out of the scene is because people at a really grassroots level feel like they own it, and that's not so. I'm you know, even though I don't necessarily respect that, I hesitate to condemn people who get angry at people for selling out, because it is really personal when it's real one-to-one level with these bands of you're helping them out, like, you know, they're standing on your floor, you're you know, working hard to get shows to them, you're making flyers for them, and they're using you to, you know, it seems that there's a certain togetherness about this underground network, and it's the scene that is so personal that I do kind of understand why people get mad when a band, like, you know, sells out, or like, because then it feels like, you know, all this work you did for them as a human was used to be like a resume or to get credentials to move on and then leave and not have anything to do with you anymore. But I understand when it's like, and then like next time they come through town, they're playing at like the Coliseum and you can't get in, and there's no more connection anymore.
Yeah, my advice.
They'll call you or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I'm in town. You should come and see us. You know, it's like, you know, that doesn't happen.
The whole idea of what is selling out, I mean, like, what is your motivation for selling out? Do you sign a major label contract because you're tired of driving a crappy car, or do you sign it because you have kids and you want to feed them and you want to make your life off your music, you know? And so I think that if you're wondering if you're selling out, you probably already have, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. That's probably not true.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that it's a different kind of ambition. You know, I think that a lot of the bands that are getting a lot of popularity are less potent and less vital and original than a lot of like sort of the fringe, but that's always been the case. I just think, yeah, I mean, a lot of the punk bands that are making it big or whatever, punk sounding groups, they just are able to do whatever you need to be a music success. Whereas I think what has always been apparent or like existed in like the punk rock or any underground scene is that like people have made choices about what kind of ambition they want to have and what kind they don't. But when you strive for, you know, universal attention, then you really have to be universal in your willingness to do anything to get that, I think.
When people complain about being on major labels and stuff, it's because they started out set up to fail. You know, they didn't really examine the situation closely. They had sort of these ideas in their mind that someone was going to take care of them and everything was going to be okay. And that's just never going to be the case in life or in music or anywhere else. And so they get hooked up with these corporations and they don't treat them like corporations. They treat them like they're their friends. And then when things go wrong, they don't understand why. They just complain about it. And I think that the people who have been able to be able to make great music and be successful in that realm are people who were realistic about it and realized that I'm an artist, I'm doing my art, and when I'm dealing with these people, I better be a business person, because that's what they are, and otherwise, if I don't look out for myself, no one else will.
Easiest to disregard me. They're your friends, and they're not really.
This week, Yo-Yo Recordings is presenting Yo-Yo Go-Go, and it's more than 50 bands. There's also spoken word and performance. We're having the Cha-Cha Cabaret. We're having bands, Japanese bands featured on each of the night shows. We have 5 Japanese bands. The things that I love about doing it are the little things like we're going to make 1,000 yo-yos and hand those out to people with full passes. We're going to have, like each show has its, good cause thing. Like Safe Place, the women's shelter, they're going to come and talk for 5 minutes. There's this thing called the Olympia Bike Library where they take donated bikes and they fix them up and they paint them pink and then just put them out on the street for anyone to use. They're going to dedicate a half dozen bikes right off the stage on Saturday. The other thing that goes on Olympia during this week of the summer is Lake Fair, which is this little, you have a parade with, Miss Honeysuckle from Puyallup and like the rickety old carnival gets put in it down at the lake and so we're going to be part of the parade and it's just, it's more than just a bunch of shows and more than just like a bunch of people coming to rock concerts. I think there's a lot of, people coming together.
So Selector, the narcotic, Larry on the drums. Just a wicked 4/4 beat, Larry on the bell. It's Selector, the narcotic, Selector, the narcotic. Selector, the narcotic, Chris on the bass. You hands in your pants, crawling across your face. Selector, the narcotic, you can't stop it. Selector, the narcotic, y'all. Selector, the narcotic, Brian on the guitar. You said, hey, Calvin, can you make me a star? I said, just play it like Jimi Hendrix did, and you'll have your own fan club inside a week. That's Selector, the narcotic. You can't stop it. Selector, the narcotic. Selector, the narcotic, Trish on the horn. Selector, the narcotic, Trish on the horn. She's been Selector, the narcotic since the day she was born. That's Trish.
Well, it seems like Yo-Yo Go-Go has become this real celebration. It's pretty exciting. Because I don't think people here really spend a lot of time taking stock of what's going on around here. They're so busy doing it. And so then this kind of gives us a chance to kind of look at ourselves. Oh, wow, look. Oh, great. I don't know, there's just sort of an atmosphere that brings out the best in people here. It's pretty exciting.
All those deep records off the shelf, all the dance for black belt men. You're not yourself, you're just a dancing machine. You're a robotic, dancing human being. Selector, the narcotic, you can't stop it. Selector, the narcotic.
All right, thank you for showing up.
I work with a lot of young people, and I see people come up and, anyone who's my age that was involved in music 15 years ago is probably hasn't bought a new record in at least 6 or 7 or 10 or 12 years. And if you happen to talk to them about it, their only attitude is going to be, oh, God, I don't think they make music like they used to. Oh, I can't listen to this stuff today. It doesn't make any sense to me. And it makes me realize that a lot of the times when we were both listening to the same music and enjoying it, maybe I was listening to it and enjoying a different thing about it than they were. Because to me, it was there was a deeper, the form that the music takes isn't necessarily as important as what's expressed in it. And the fact that it is an expression from someone's heart or soul. And so that's the part that I like, and that's why I like lots of different kinds of music, because that's there in all these different kinds of music. And I'm not really interested in just one kind of music, because it's boring. Because there's not just one kind of person in the world.
So I'm just more interested in making records than making live music, which seems to be backwards, I guess. But I think a lot of people, a lot of bands don't realize how easy it is to make records. They just think that what you do is you play out, get signed, and then, you know, when you get signed, the record is secondary. I think the record for me is the whole point, but that, I don't know.
Sights on Eddie Fisher. 1955 showed off the ring. Soon they traded vows just 3 years later. Family was a foursome. Future's bright.
There's always going to be people doing interesting things, whether anyone's paying attention or not. Usually when no one's paying attention. So, you know, it doesn't matter what's going on in the mainstream. There's going to be some person making great records that nobody cares about.
The way that Unwound works mostly is we don't set out to do anything in particular ever. You know, the music that we write is very rarely like brought to practice as a song, or brought to practice as like, you'll do this and you'll do this. Like, you know, whether or not someone is like, you know, plinked out something at home and like brought it to practice, you know, that happens all the time. But like all of our songs are written in practice when we just sit and play. I mean, there's no agenda. There's no like, you know, supreme goal of like, you know, what the lyrics are gonna say and what, you know, what the music's gonna sound like. You know, hopefully what happens is our records like flow pretty well from one to the next, but the first one sounds different than the last one.
Well, we play at all ages shows principally because before we were old enough to go to bars, we could see bands in bars, and I mean, it's really simple, you know. Yeah, and we also try to keep the door prices low, generally. Just, you know, so you don't spend a fortune, and if we play a bad show, it's like, well, it's $5 or $6 or something. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, going to a movie. You're taking a small risk. It might be good or bad, but it's not that big of a deal financially.
All of Unwound's music has always been all ages, regardless of the crowd, you know? I mean, if people that are over 21 like to come see our band, they come see our band. They don't care if we're playing at the Jabberjaw, which is all ages, or they don't care if we're playing, you know, at a hall or a basement, you know? I mean, if they know about it, they'll come see us if they want to really come see us. And I do think that, like, the spirit of youth dies at 21 when you just have, like, maybe better things to think about or more things to think about. And when you go out, you go out. You don't want to go hang out with kids. And, like, that's the defining age of, like, when you don't have to go hang out with kids anymore. You know, and that's the problem, is that like maybe people just don't want to go hang out with the kids, even though they should probably still be kids themselves.
People come up to me and try to talk to me about punk. I mean, it's there, originally, ideally, it is what has driven me from the very beginning, but at this point, whatever that word means anymore, it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't.
So I don't even like to use it. In general, it's been robbed of its weight, of its meaning. I feel pretty lucky that I had that kind of youthful vision, enthusiasm, because that was really important to me then. And it still is. It still is, like, always going to be probably one of the things that I try to consider in my life as I get older. Like, am I remembering how exciting it was to look at life without any of the kind of baggage that you get as you grow older?
My films are expressive of a culture that has had the possibility of attaining material fulfillment,
while at the same time finding itself unable to accomplish the simple business of conducting human lives.
We have been sold a bill of goods as a substitute for life.
In this country, people die at the age of 21.
And they die emotionally at 21, maybe younger.
My responsibility as an artist is to help them past 21. John Cassavetes. So, it's hard to disagree with the man.
You are still listening to Brave New Waves on CBC Radio 2. I'm Patty Schmidt. And my guests tonight are director Justin Mitchell and his co-producer Marvin Miranda. They're behind a documentary called Songs for Cassavetes. And the film, self-produced film, takes a look at the do-it-yourself world of underground music, focusing particularly on the American West Coast in Olympia, Washington, which is home to K-Records, Kill Rock Stars, Yo-Yo Studios, Dub Narcotic Studios. And the film includes interviews and footage from Sleater-Kinney, the Peechees, the Makeup, Unwound, K-Records founder Calvin Johnson, producer Pat Maley. He's behind things Yo-Yo. And Justin and Marvin will join me from Santa Monica after this track by Some Velvet Sidewalk, and then a little clip from Some Velvet Sidewalk's Al Larsen, taken from Songs for Cassavetes.
Doing what you want to do, you know. It's kind of like, you know, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And like, you know, maybe it's not popular this year, maybe it's not popular next year, maybe it's never going to be what's popular, but this is what I want to do. And maybe it's not what you want to do, and whatnot. And maybe I have to do it all myself, you know, maybe I have to like get on the phone and every inch of the way make this show happen, make that show happen, make the poster, mix the tape, get the tape, mix the tape, turn, you know, put the artwork together, and there's not going to be someone holding your hand and going, okay, we're going to take your tape away from you now and remix it and market it for you and whatnot. But having that faith that you're just going to do what you want to do and follow your own path, it's a nice thing, and it kind of extends beyond whatever little piece of time in your life that you play music, whether it's, you know, 10 years of your life or 20 years of your life or the rest of your life. It kind of extends beyond it as just sort of a lesson about how to live your life.
A clip by Al Larsen from Some Velvet Sidewalk from the documentary film Songs for Cassavetes, directed by Justin Mitchell, co-produced by Marvin Miranda, and they are my guests tonight. Hi, Justin.
Hi, Patty.
Hi, Marvin.
Hello, Patty.
Now, this is, I should explain, this is a black and white 16mm feature-length documentary on the American indie underground and some of the bands appearing. This is just the quick list. The Makeup, Sleater-Kinney, Henry's Dress, Unwound, The High Fives, Futher, Tullycraft, Some Velvet Sidewalk, The Peechees, and big personalities like Calvin Johnson as well. And partly this film is framed around a quote that you borrowed from John Cassavetes, and it took me you have to wait till the end of the film to actually get the payoff about the quote, but Justin, I wanted to ask you if you could just tell us what the quote is and why it reverberates with you.
Okay, the quote is, I'm speaking as John Cassavetes now. My films,
Okay.
My films are expressive of a culture that has had the possibility of attaining material fulfillment, while at the same time finding itself unable to accomplish the simple business of conducting human lives. We have been sold a bill of goods as a substitute for life. In this country, people die at the age of 21. They die emotionally at 21, maybe younger. My responsibility as an artist is to help them past 21. So this was a quote that I had come upon in a book on John Cassavetes in the early stages of thinking about the film. I think we had filmed the Peechees and Henry's Dress possibly, but hadn't really continued any further. And it really struck me as something that I felt that a lot of these bands were doing, maybe unbeknownst
Not
to
dying
them.
at 21, you mean?
Right, and also I think helping kids younger than them and older than them to see a different framework for living their lives.
Well, Al Larsen, who we started the clip with, or whose clip started this, certainly is not 21 and is older than that, and perhaps illustrates the most metaphysical sort of approach to being part of the American indie underground at this point. Is that something that you found threaded throughout the film and the people that you talked to?
Oh, we did. I mean, I think we, using the quote, we had people read the quote and react to it, and we wanted to see if there was any connection between, what they read and how they were playing their music and living their lives, and more often than not, people did have, something to say.
Well, I think also that it just points to the fact that with these bands, it's not just about making music for the sake of making music, but it's actually intertwined, and it's an extension of their life,
Mm. The age 21, though, seems to be a kind of particularly American phenomenon. Perhaps it has to do with the drinking age.
True.
And some kind of prolonged or extended adolescence where you don't really have age of majority. Did you think about the American experience as opposed to, say, other youth movements, say, in Britain or possibly in Canada?
I think we were basically just sort of thinking about our society and how through age and stuff, a lot of these bands have been able to go against the grain or not, necessarily follow the path that, a lot of their peers do because they're involved in mainstream America and stuff, that they've got to go off and play at 18 and over or 21 and over venues, in order to be listened to and appreciated. And I think that's where we were coming from in terms of that particular age of 21 and how it's, manipulated by our society.
Well, there's also, this alternative sort of community lifestyle, way of living, way of thinking about the world that threads throughout a lot of the interviews as well. But when you're defining American do-it-yourselfness and alternate ways, anti-capitalist major label ways of living your life, there's obviously a whole pile of names that spring to mind that you could have talked to. And Fugazi, for me, was the big one that probably a lot of people borrow ways of living from. Was there a reason that you couldn't get access to them, or did it not matter?
We would have loved to. Oh my God, we would have loved to have gone. As a matter of fact, there was an incident where, we did run into Ian MacKaye at the Yo-Yo Go-Go, or at least I remember running into him, and I had at the time the Super 8 with me, or the High 8 rather, the video camera, and he was sort of bobbing his head in the background and stuff, listening to whatever band was playing on stage, and I thought, oh my God, here's the opportunity to just sort of off the cuff, Ian MacKaye. We were in the midst of interviewing all these other bands. I went up to him and told, introduced myself to him, told him what we were doing and stuff, and all of a sudden he stopped being the mellow, easygoing sort of bobbing his head guy that he was being, and just sort of became very alert, and attentive, and was very just back offish, and his attitude was okay, well, who are you guys, and what are you guys doing this for, and who's tied into this, and just this I completely understand where he was coming from, and being Ian MacKaye, he must get bombarded with all sorts of people all the time and stuff, and so I just seemed that it sort of just seemed a band. It sort of definitely at that point it sort of seemed like a band that was just inaccessible to us.
Well, were you at all prepared for that sensation that you were trespassing in a secret community?
Yeah, we were very conscious from the beginning. It was something that both Marvin and I talked with a lot about, of how we were going to approach the bands, and what we really wanted to do was have them be comfortable with us and see that we were coming from this underground. We really wanted the bands to feel comfortable that we weren't an outside movie company that had just kind of happened upon this scene or this interesting story and wanted to document it,
or exploit it for that matter.
Right. And we were very careful every time we would approach a band.
They don't particularly care for the same sort of exposure, that a lot of other bands might be seeking.
Right. We had gotten in touch with Sleater-Kinney, and I had talked to Corin, and she had at that point said, we're not interested in being filmed. We've had so much media attention. Spin magazine had put them in their top 40 bands of the year, and they were just getting all this media attention that they weren't too fond of some of it, and so they declined to be filmed, and a year later they were opening for John Spencer's Blues Explosion, and they were going to be opening for them in Los Angeles, and I get a call 2 weeks before the show from Corin, and she says, hey, are you still filming you still making that film? Would you like to film us? And I said, of course, it's going to be great. And I asked her after this conversation, I said, what changed your mind? And she told a story about a week before. An HBO producer had called them up and approached them to be in an HBO special on alternative music. And when Sleater-Kinney asked for a list of the bands that they were going to be filming, it turned out Sleater-Kinney was the only band with any women in it. So there were like 10 bands, and Sleater-Kinney was the token girl band. But Sleater-Kinney turned them down, and I guess it prompted, Corin just said it made her think about me in the film, and so she called us up, and that was how we got to film them in LA.
You also seem to get them at that crucial sort of point in time where they were having real vertigo about the amount of media attention they were getting, and we're going to actually play a clip from Sleater-Kinney. They say some interesting things on the subject of media representation, as well as them not wanting anybody to forget where they come from, and they know where they come from.
Yes.
So this is Sleater-Kinney from Songs for Cassavetes, and then Words and Guitar.
It was so bizarre. It was like this period of like us being on tour, for like 4 weeks and working really hard and playing these shows that were oftentimes just regular shows. There'd be like 50 people there, and then just sort of like driving through a gas station, and our roadie Tim went to buy some magazines to read in the van, and he picked out the Time magazine and was like, oh my God, you guys are in here. And we were like, what? And it was kind of that experience of like feeling sort of out of control in terms of like who was writing about us. I mean, the guy who wrote us about Time is like obviously not interested in the kind of music that we were playing. Like he found it like noisy and, like, discordant, and it's like, well, we obviously are coming from this sort of like punk rock, like, genre of music that he wasn't interested in.
Well, I don't think we were trying to label or redefine what our community is. We were just trying to acknowledge the fact that when you do mainstream press, they try to take you out of context and act as if we are not part of a larger community and a larger musical environment. And Sleater-Kinney wouldn't exist without bands and individual people and labels from Portland and Olympia. We just wouldn't exist. And I think that when you're being interviewed, I mean, they want to just like act as if you just fell from the sky, as if everything we did had nothing to do and was not connected with other people and with other musicians and ideas. And so I think we've been really trying to acknowledge that our record and our success and our failures and everything about our band has to do with our community and not just about us as individuals. It's so much about like other work that other people are doing, and not just about us. And it's about that interconnectedness. And it's not trying to label like what we're coming from, but just acknowledge like we are coming from somewhere. We're not just an isolated like entity without a context or a background or history or anything.
Now, when you approach the bands, especially Sleater-Kinney, who have big media fear, how much sort of heading and reassurance and credentials did you have to show to them, as well as other people, I assume, as well?
I think our credential was that we would show up at a show, and we had sent them a letter and a videotape of the footage we had filmed with the Peechees, and very simple letter explaining what we were hoping to do, and then we would meet them at a show and see if they had liked the tape and liked the letter, and some of them had not received the letter or the tape, but we were coming at them from we were meeting them at the Jabberjaw in Los Angeles, this tiny little club, and I think from the beginning, most everyone felt somewhat comfortable with us, And then I think the next time they came into town, we would go to their show again and say, hey, this is what we're hoping to do. We're going to be going to the Yo-Yo Festival. We heard you're going to be playing. Is that going to be all right? And I think we definitely initially thought that the bands were going to be much less receptive than they ultimately were.
Did it start a chain reaction? Like once you got footage and interviews from people like Sleater-Kinney, did this sort of start a spark off on everybody else, and it was much easier to get to them?
Not necessarily. I think with each band, it was sort of like starting again, or sort of like, as you mentioned, prove yourself to them. I think the fact that it seemed like we knew what we were talking about, that we weren't just a couple of guys that sort of like picked up, or found out about Sleater-Kinney, through the radio and just wanted to to interview them and then, go off and see who else we might interview. The fact that it wasn't like that, the fact that we knew where they were coming from, the fact that, we met them at places like Jabberjaw, the fact that we mentioned all the other bands that we were interested.
Well, when you guys are forced to explain this film to, say, somebody from Mars, what do you say?
Just every other person.
Yeah.
Sort of just give them very generic answer, general answer about, these are bands that are part of this quote-unquote underground lifestyle, who are very successful, making the music that they're making, but don't necessarily want to become mainstream, and usually that's the hook for people to go, that's interesting.
Right.
You're telling me that there are bands out there who what you mean are apparently making great music, but don't want to be the next, Nirvana or Sensation or whatever.
Trying to explain to someone, you say to anyone, these bands are not, some of them don't want to be in my film, or didn't want to in the beginning. And anyone is going to say, wait a minute, they're a band. Don't they want to promote themselves? Don't they want to be successful?
Yeah. Be on TV.
Yeah. And it's that kind of notion that I think you can tell anyone from Mars, or anyone that is maybe just more into mainstream music, if you present that notion to them, then that can help them to maybe understand what the film is getting at. That was one thing that was hard, was trying to put the film together, keeping in mind both an audience that was in love with this music and was into this music as a lifestyle, and also an audience of people that had never heard of it, because I didn't want it to just be for,
Well, it's like there's the inside-outside sort of tension, right? Is it a fan document, or is it anthropological?
Right. I was hoping to do both. I still don't know if it worked, because I've yet to have too many reactions from people that are coming from the outside.
Well, there's the big character, I suppose, who begins the film and closes the film, is Calvin Johnson, who runs K Records and has been, I don't know, is it excessive to say that he could almost be single-handedly responsible for...
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think it is. Are you saying? I don't think it's excessive to say that.
He seems to be practical and quite ideological about things, radical statements about all major label music is bad and irrelevant, that kind of stuff.
No, it is not excessive to say that.
Okay.
I was completely in agreement with you. At least I am and stuff.
The interview with him was just. I think it was so lucky that we got it, and he said so many amazing things that. And that happened, like, we had been sitting there for 2 days up in Olympia. We hadn't filmed anything for 2 days, and I ended up calling up Kay and getting in touch with, getting Calvin on the phone. He said, I'm not doing anything right now. Why don't you come on over? And, for, about 45 minutes to an hour, we sat with him and kind of walked around. And, and that wasn't, that was the thing that was great about a lot of parts of the film was we couldn't have scheduled an interview with Calvin Johnson. There's no way he would have said, oh yeah, Thursday, 5 o'clock. My schedule's open, because he doesn't live his life that way. But, it just kind of really making sure that, we told everyone, like, we'll take what you can give us. And, we just are really excited to film your music and to hear your thoughts. And that was kind of, how we approached people. And I think we got lucky in a lot of ways, because we did get some great stuff. It could have gone the other way.
Well, it was 2 years to finish the film, right? Or from start to finish, it was 2 years.
We started filming. We filmed the Peeches in January of 1996, and we filmed a show with Unwound in San Diego in January of 1998. I'm hoping that the film has its own life. It seems like it started something. Like this, in doing this radio interview, it seems like, things are starting to happen. People are starting to talk about it, and I for one would love for the film to be kind of found out that way, versus all of a sudden just scoring some big deal with some big company.
Yeah, I for one do believe that it will be found out and stuff. I mean, that at some point, whether it's now or 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that it will be discovered, unearthed, whatever. I mean, if you think about it, these bands, most of these bands are no longer around and stuff. The Peechees, Henry Stress, Futher, some Velvet Sidewalk, and I at least don't know of any other sort of documentary that tries to encapsulate this particular moment, important moment as far as I'm concerned, in punk rock, quote unquote, music, underground music of from the 90s and stuff. So I think people, people who are interested in music, people who are into punk rock, or whether they're just into music at all and stuff, will be interested, and at some point seeing this, watching this.
Yeah. It might be slow growth, but hopefully it'll get there.
Which is also a perfect seg into talking about Pat Maley, who's the organizer of the annual Yo-Yo A Go-Go. And we're going to go out with a clip of him, but he also has been running Yo-Yo Studios for 15 years, and he does a barter system with bands where he doesn't want them to fade off the earth and wants to make sure that they're documented as well, which is one of his motivations. So we're going to go out with a clip of Pat Maley discussing the Yo-Yo compilations and then something from the new Projector comp. And thank you, Justin, and thank you, Marvin.
All right, thank you.
And good luck with the film distribution thing.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
What's the difference between major label and yo-yo? Well, money, specifically. We have none. And we go into large debt to make the records that we make. And typically we can't really pay our bands anything. And a while ago, I got this idea. I mean, I had this studio. I bought it, squandered inheritance, and I had it. And I got this idea that, because I saw all these bands around me who I thought were really great, and that it seemed like they would just disappear after 6 months, and no one would ever get to hear them. And I knew that they didn't have any money. They just got together because they loved to. And so I got this idea of I'll just start recording them for free. I've just got nothing to do. It gives me experience. I get to do what I love to do. And eventually I came up with the idea of creating these compilation records where I would offer a band a recording session. We'd do half dozen songs, and then I'd get one of the recordings, one of the songs, and put them on these compilations, make the compilations, sell them, and then I'd get the money for it, for the studio. And that would basically pay for their session. And so we created this barter system that worked really well because it allowed these bands that did disappear pretty quickly or whatever, or changed significantly from the beginning. We allowed that to be documented, and that was really important.